Good afternoon. Good afternoon. This is Arnel Tanyag with Tanyag Company. I got a special guest today, Jeff Kuhn. And Jeff, your company's Be More. Is it Be More Intentional? International?
That's what I want people to do is be more intentional. The overall company is Be More Brands,
Oh,
and
wow.
we point at a few different things. Be more every day, so the same spelling,
Mm,
no e, right? Be more every day is probably our most popular portion of the website for sure, and then
that's
Be More
good.
Daily, DAILY,
Hmm.
um, is .com is a way to join a mastermind call we do each morning, kind of a daily take action call, which is why we call it Be More Daily. Take action and join us.
No, that's pretty good. Pretty good. The reason I brought Jeff on because I've known Jeff for a couple of years. He was with me in Maps Business Coaching, and he has a unique perspective, running a very successful real estate brokerage and running a very successful retail conglomerate, and he's done multiple things. He's in some great spaces. He's got some unique experiences and perspectives that we want to have. And I always want to bring on people that can just enhance our ability as business owners and advisors to bring good people to give you different perspectives. And because at the end of the day, we don't know what we don't know. And I'm always looking to find great people who have great stories, great frameworks, break it down easy for them to follow, and then utilize this resource as something that you can go to and really help you. Because I always believe that, I know my clients really well. I need to bring in resources, got to bring in people, contacts, connections to keep them focused on growing their business or scaling it. And Jeff is one of those people. So, Jeff, tell us a little bit about your history. How'd you get started in the business world?
Well, it all began with a rat, Arnell, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you knew that or not,
I
but
didn't know that.
at 16 years old, I applied to be the mouse at Chuck E. Cheese,
Wow.
and while I was in the application process, I was standing there in the front of this new unit opening. It hadn't even
Mm-hmm.
opened yet, so I would have been one of the first employees. And people were coming in, and I was pointing at the sign and pointing at the sign-in sheet and giving them applications, and I didn't even work for them. And but providing direction,
Mm-hmm. That's true.
right there in the lobby. And apparently the GM was the guy doing interviews at the time, and he saw me doing it, and he's like, "I'm going to hire that kid. He
Yep.
doesn't know it yet. I haven't even talked to him, and I'm going to make him one of our first trainers."
Wow.
And so that happened. I was hired. I became one of the early trainers for a new unit opening. And then even as a kid, I started jumping around some other locations and helping them with their new unit openings. Got a little bit excited and kind of got the trainer bug, so to speak.
Hmm.
Like I just loved working with others and helping them to learn and get started and get moving in their career. And I
That's
moved
amazing.
into management with Chuck E. Cheese. Um, and I don't know about you, Arnell, but have you ever felt like your standards might be a little bit higher than some of the other people that you've worked with?
Correct. 100%. I felt that before.
So that happened with me. I moved into management and started looking at some of the other people that had been hired, and I just didn't feel like their standards were high enough. Like
Hmm.
we weren't the cleaning wasn't happening that was supposed to be happening, or they'd stop, God forbid, inside of a Chuck E. Cheese and play a game in the middle of their shift, and you know, and
Wow.
and as a leader, like I was getting irritated. I was 18, 19 years old,
Wow.
and I just started sending people home and letting people go and firing people. And my boss looked at me and he was like, Jeff, like I'll always respect you. I've always got your back. I chose you to be a leader. And did you know we could coach them? We don't have to fire them. And he handed me a copy of the One Minute Manager, told me to read it and come back next week and we'd talk about it. And honestly, that was the first development book of any sort I'd ever read in my life,
Oh, wow.
and kind of my first step into what the difference between a leader and a manager was, and my first step into learning how to work with my people to grow them into future high performers as opposed to just firing people because they weren't holding to an impossible standard I had set in my head.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So where'd you go from there?
So I was with Chuck E. Cheese about 9 years. I ended up traveling up and down the East Coast, helping to open up new units. and ended up being a regional training general manager. I ran a training center where all new store managers would come learn how to do their jobs before they went to their new locations with me, and probably hired about 3,000 people inside of my Chuck E. Cheese career.
Wow.
Um, and then I realized as I started to have kids and have a family that restaurants, you work a lot of hours and a lot of weekends, even if
Yep.
it is a kid's restaurant.
Yep.
I was missing my kids because I never saw them when they started to go to school,
Hmm.
and I decided to move into retail to give myself some more some more time at home.
Times. Yeah.
Not realizing that I was about to lose Christmas because retail's so busy during Christmas time, which is a huge family holiday.
That's correct.
Uh, but then I spent the next decade or so inside of retail stores, and helping to grow a Hasbro board game company, and their retail chain. And as they launched, and
Hmm.
then a GameStop and EB Games merged together, and I helped them open dozens of locations and ran a district for them of 30 stores and about 350 people. Moved into um, what Lumber Liquidators, which was my first commissioned sales
Oh,
job.
wow.
And we worked on store commission, which I loved, right? Everybody was working together to hit a store goal, and if we
Yeah.
hit the store goal, depending on your position in the store, you got a percentage of the overall commission pool, which I thought was a really great way to have a vision and a goal and work together to achieve
Yes,
a
correct.
big goal,
That's correct.
and which really fit into my teamwork mentality at the time.
Hmm.
Moved into third-party retail. Some people gave me a call one day and said, "Hey, we heard you're the guy to talk to when we want to open up new locations. We'd love to talk to you about launching inside of retail stores."
Hmm.
And so I was hired into Solar City Tesla at the time to
Wow.
launch into a their retail concept. They were putting lead generators inside of Home Depots and Best Buys, and working with the people that did the satellites,
Yeah.
and inside of malls, inside of their Tesla
Yeah.
stores, and things to that effect. And so at the time I was hired, we had about 40 lead setters and another 20 or 30 salespeople.
Wow.
And about 2 years later, in the same market, we had 1,600 salespeople and lead setters.
Wow.
So we grew to over 1,600 people. I had 24 district managers reporting to me as the territory director. Um,
Wow.
and uh, and it kept going from there, Arnel, to be honest with you. I moved from there into a Vivint Smart Home and did the same thing. We launched inside of Best Buys and Sprints, and did a retail um, model for them where we would set appointments to have sales guys go and sell smart home and security inside people's
Wow.
homes.
Wow.
And that's when you and I started to get about the time to meet. I'd been traveling so much in those companies. I'd literally hired over 20,000 people at that point.
Wow.
And in the Vivint period, there was a 4 month period. I would fly to Salt Lake City on a Monday morning and fly home on the red eye Thursday night. And I was just gone all week, and
Yeah.
I finally decided I was kind of done with that. I wanted to get something closer to home,
Hmm.
and I applied for a CEO position at a local real estate brokerage. I didn't have my real estate license, but I knew a
Hmm.
lot of real estate agents, and I figured if I could sell $100,000 cars and two $300,000 solar panel systems, we could probably figure out how to coach people on selling real estate.
That's correct. That's correct.
and and so I moved into the TL role inside of a local Keller Williams brokerage. Got my first taste of Diana Kokoska, who's a big mentor of mine
Yeah.
these days, inside of her coaching skills camp classes, and got a MAPS coach. That was my first one-on-one coach outside of leadership, and just really started seeing honestly what the other side of the world looked like from small business entrepreneurship, because
Yeah.
I spent so much time in big companies. I hadn't really looked at the fact that there's all these little companies all around me that
Yep.
um, that were working to grow too, with smaller teams, and
Yep.
maybe not as big of a vision as Elon had.
Yep.
And so then I started coaching real estate agents and their local teams, and working with them to do what I'd done in other businesses, which was hire great people and train them the right way, and help them to achieve. And
Yep.
I had the coaching and training bug.
Yeah.
Around that time, I launched my own lead generation business. We called it Legion Prospecting. And I started hiring door-to-door, business-to-business salespeople to work with local dentists and chiropractors and attorneys, and just go door to door between businesses, and help to make connections for them, and get leads being transferred back and forth. And then
Wow.
something little called COVID hit,
Yeah.
and all of that shut down.
Yeah, it's true.
And that's when you and I met, because
That's
that's
right.
when I realized I needed to go virtual, and virtual looked a lot more like having one-on-one and
Yeah.
group workshops online.
Yeah.
And I signed up to get to be coach certified, and start working with people one-on-one as opposed to working with their whole businesses. So
Well, that's good. That's really, really good. So, what are the problems you're solving right now in the business community in these days and the landscape we're in?
yeah, well, you know, I think I realized in the CEO role that even as an executive, there's people that you answer to, right? That's the owners
Hmm.
of the business.
Yep. That's right.
um, and so to that end, and to that respect, you know, what I found out is that whether you're the owner, whether you're an executive, whether you're upper leadership and management inside of a
Hmm.
business, whether you're that middle management or even entry level management,
Hmm.
or employee, that everybody has they've got a goal to hit, right?
That's correct.
And so what I found often, inside of business maps, and with the clients there, and with clients that I've picked up on my own, now that I'm growing the Be More brands,
Hmm.
is that a lot of people that I talk to, they might know what they want their business to do this year.
Yeah.
Um, some of them might even have like an obscure goal,
Hmm.
something that they know they want to accomplish someday,
Hmm.
and they just haven't broken down
Yep.
exactly what that's going to look like specifically, right? Like, we haven't arranged specifics around their
Yep.
someday goals.
That's correct.
And so what gets really interesting to me about that is, if I was to ask you today, like, what do you want to do someday? You could probably be pretty specific about what you want your business to look like.
Yep.
And what blows my mind even more is how many people don't have any specifics around what they want to do personally
That's
someday.
correct. That's correct.
You
That's correct.
know?
That's correct. 100%.
Yeah, and that just to me was a bit of a shocker as I started to have that realization. It's like I know what I need to do today, tomorrow, this week, this month to hit my business goals for the
Yep.
year.
Yep.
That's pretty easy math. Most
Yep.
of us have been through that exercise.
Yep.
And so many people, like, I can't tell you the number of people that are in my life, especially here in Maryland, that just say, like, I want to have a house in Ocean City someday, right?
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
okay, well, what does that look like? Is that next
Yep.
year? Oh no, not next year, someday. Well,
Yep.
what does that look like? 5 years? I don't,
Yep.
I
Yep.
don't know, just someday.
That's
Like,
correct.
okay,
That's correct.
well, let's nail that down. Let's pick a date. And it's
That's
so
correct.
weird because, like, the moment we do, sometimes they've got it in 3 months. They're
I
like,
agree.
it's
I agree.
it doesn't, like, they could have told me 5 years from now, and they have, and then they get their ocean house, like a condo down the ocean, maybe overlooking the beach, even if it's not on the
Hmm.
beach, right?
Hmm.
Walking distance from the beach at the very least, um, and they have it within like 3 months. And the big reason is because most of us have never sat down and looked at our personal life, and treated it the same way that we might treat a business goal. We just haven't broken down those details.
That's correct. 100%.
And so that's what I do with businesses. What I like to do with businesses, and this was the reason for my success, by the way. Like, I mentioned all these different companies I work for, and some might say, well, Jeff, like, you bounced around a lot of different companies. You must have gotten, like, you must not have been very successful. You kept looking. Well, that's the exact opposite. The reason I bounced around to so many companies is that I was so successful, people kept trying to recruit me.
Yep.
And the big difference that I had, the reason I was successful was because that manager handed me the 1 minute manager when I was, 19. And I realized if I sit down with my people every week and take 5 minutes to talk to them about their personal professional goals, we can strategize about how they're going to hit them each week. And so I started making it a priority to sit down with my teams every week everybody on my team, the people that reported specifically to me, for 5 minutes at least each week, and fill out a little questionnaire that said, what was your goal last week? How did you do? What's your goal this week? What are you going to do differently to hit it? Right?
Hmm.
Like, somebody could say, I'm doing the same thing. I hit it last week. I'm going to do the same thing and hit it this week, and that would have been fine for me.
Yep.
But, if you didn't hit it, what are you going to do differently to hit it? And then I added another question in a little while later, which was, how can I help? It
Hmm.
wasn't in the early iteration. It was just, what are your numbers? What's your goal? What's your strategy? And that was the early iteration.
Well.
And it became, how can I help? And then a further iteration farther down the road, I had an employee at one point in time that um, she was great. Like, I
Hmm.
thought she was going to be my next store manager, Arnel. Like, I was a store manager. I was known for getting other store managers promoted around the market. Like, I'd bring in assistant managers. They'd work with me for a few months. We'd get them all prepped and ready, and they'd get promoted.
Wow.
And like, I put the pin on her. Like, I knew she was going to be the next one. She was ready.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden she wasn't. I came in, like, we're still doing these weekly one-on-ones, and
Wow.
just she's not hitting her numbers. Like, the shifts that she worked were the shifts that the store looked the worst. Like,
Yeah.
she'd show up late. I could tell that she wasn't putting in the attention needed to close the store down right.
Wow.
And when she was working was when our team was not hitting their number goals, and every
Mm.
other team was. So she was the one that was out of place, right? Like,
Yeah.
so we sat down, and I'm still young. I was probably 26, 27 at the time, and and
Hmm.
and so we sat down, and I look in, and I'm like, hey, like, what's going on? You keep missing. And
Yeah.
she'd give me your information. I'm like, okay, let's go hit it. And then the next week she still hadn't hit it. Wait, what's going on? And
Yeah.
finally I was just like, look, we got to get this fixed. Like,
Yeah.
I had you selected as my next store manager, and this just isn't happening. Like, I'm gonna have to, like, really seriously consider if you're the one,
Yeah. Yeah.
like, if I can put my recommendation on you.
Hmm.
Ah, she got really angry with me, and got up and walked out of the room and didn't talk to me the rest of the day. And the next day I come in, and she's still not talking to me. And
Ooh.
uh, and I just look at her. I'm like, look, you can't give me the silent treatment. You're not my husband.
Yeah.
Woo! That did not go over well.
Wow. 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 Wow.
Like, I'm not your husband. You can't just give me the silent treatment. And she called
Wow.
HR. She called the VP. Uh, and
Wow.
um, and they all get on the phone with me. They're like, "What's up?" And I say to them, like, I don't know. Like, that's what I've been trying to figure out. Like, maybe I
Hmm.
shouldn't have said that. Sure, I'll apologize. And that's how I was feeling at the time. My bad. Like, I should have
Hmm.
been more sensitive. And I sat down with her, Arnell, and I realized that, uh, as we were digging in and as I apologized, she started to cry. And I found out that her husband had left her about a month before. Just
Wow.
out of the blue, she came home from work one day, and her husband wasn't there.
Wow.
Um, and that's why her performance had changed. Like, she's showing up late because she was struggling to get her kids picked up from school and
Yeah.
to a daycare, right? Like, to
Yeah.
somebody that could watch them while she was working.
Yeah.
She was taking longer breaks because she was then picking them up from the one family and dropping them off at the other. Like, she was racing out of work and driving her kids around and then racing back into work. And she
Wow.
was racing out early at the end of the night because she had to get home and get her kids to bed and
Wow.
then repeat it the next day.
Wow.
Um, and I didn't know. I'd sat down with her
Yep.
every week for a month and had
Yep.
these take five conversations, and I still didn't realize that that was happening in her life. And then I realized we were missing a question, right? Like, um, and it takes me back to that personal goal aspect, and that was, what's going on personally, right? Like,
Hmm.
I don't need people to give me their drama. I don't need people to give me their life story
Yep.
each week. And I want to know, as a leader, how I could help them hit their personal goals. And so, if somebody says to me, Jeff, I want to buy a vacation home one day, I want to be talking to them about what they're doing to hit it, right? Like, if somebody says to me, I want to be a store manager personally, or if somebody says,
Hmm.
I want, I want to start a side business, right? Like,
Yeah.
I actually have an employee that told me that recently, like, that they told me they wanted to start a food truck business, you
Wow.
know,
Wow.
and and so they're working for me, but they'd always had this dream of just
Yeah.
of having a food truck.
Yeah.
The food truck. They love to cook,
Yeah.
and I mean, you know, and some people could say, well, man, like, do I want my employee to have a food truck business? That's going to take their attention away from what they're doing with me, right? Had a guy one year that started an outdoor like a drive-in, a movie theater
Yeah.
drive-in, and and so, like, talk about how wild is that somebody
Yeah.
that you're helping somebody build and create and start their dreams, you know?
That's correct. That's correct.
And like, if they wanted to stay with me forever and work their way up and
Yeah.
work their way up the ladder, perfect. Like,
Yeah.
I'd make sure there was room for that. And
Yep.
if their dreams included getting better so they could start their own business, then perfect. Like, how cool to help them achieve that way. And it was a question that I'd never asked before because that's not what we were talking about. We're talking about business goals.
Yep.
And I was missing that personal aspect. And then I realized, by the way, guess what? If you're the boss that helps somebody achieve their dreams, how loyal do you think that makes them?
Yeah, it's true.
Right? If you
That
help
is
somebody
true.
get a vacation home,
Yep.
if you help somebody be the first person in their family to buy their own actual home, like get out of renting, if you help somebody be the first person in their family to graduate college, right?
Yeah.
Like, because this type of stuff happens in restaurant and retail, right?
Yeah.
Like, they get into management inside of a restaurant and they make more money than anybody in their family has ever made combined, right?
Yeah, that's
Like,
correct.
all of a sudden, you're helping people achieve personal goals
Yeah, you're right.
that just are blowing their minds, and they will literally go to the end of the earth and work for you for forever. And that wasn't the reason I was doing it. The reason I was doing it was because I wanted to see them achieve, and that, you know, the byproduct was when they win, they work better at work. My stores achieve, right? Because my stores had to achieve in order
Yep.
for them to get their personal goal, right?
Yep.
Like, you're not getting the big bonuses, the big commission checks if you're not hitting your goals, right?
Yeah.
You're not getting promoted if you're not hitting your goals. So the store became the vehicle,
Yep.
the business became the vehicle for them to achieve their personal goals. They'd work hard at work in order to get the jet ski at home, right? And
That's
so,
true. That's true.
whatever it might be, they'd work hard at work to put their kid into the travel sports program they wanted to put him into,
Hmm.
or put her into the private school they really wanted her to be at. And so when you could provide a environment for them to be successful at work, all of a sudden, their their loyalty just, I still have people that I worked with 20 and 30 years ago that, reach out and get my advice on things they're going through at work, which is just really
That's
cool for
amazing.
me. Yeah.
Why do you think companies don't do that 5 minute checkup?
I think there's a couple of reasons. The first one is I don't think anybody believes it can be done in 5 minutes.
That's
Uh,
true.
I again, as a coach, like, I've had some clients that I've encouraged them to do this with, and they're like, Jeff, like, you say 5 minutes, but I sit down and it takes 2 hours. And I'm
Hmm.
like, well, yeah. When's the last time you sat down with them?
That's
They're like,
true.
well, probably 2 months ago. And I was like, well,
Or longer.
yeah, yeah, yeah. If they told me 2 months, it was probably four.
Yeah. That's right. That's
So,
right.
so if you take 16 weeks times five, that adds up to about 2 hours.
Yeah. It's true. That's true. That's a good point. That's a very good perspective. That's true.
And they're starved for attention, right?
Yep. Yep. Yep.
So
Yep.
they've got a lot to talk about. They've got a lot to discover with you because they're so starved for your attention.
Yep.
They need a lot of guidance to get back
Yeah.
on track at this point because it's been so long since you've had this one-on-one
Yep.
conversation.
Yep. 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 Yep.
And so there's that. B, I think it's not a skilled practice for a lot of people, right? Like, so many
That's
of us,
true.
and by the way, I came up with this when I was 19. And guess what? When I was working at Tesla and I had 24 district managers, I was the first one to walk away from it for a little bit, right? Like, I
Hmm.
realized at a point that I wasn't doing it very well again, like, because I had so much stuff that I needed to communicate to my team. I would tell them a bunch of stuff in emails and tell them a bunch of stuff on
Hmm.
conference calls.
Hmm.
But then when I got one-on-one, like, I felt like I needed to get through a checklist real quick. Hey, have you done this? And before I knew it, the half hour was over, and
That's right.
then they needed to go and I hadn't asked them about anything.
Oh, wow.
And there was a point in that process that I realized I was not connecting again. Somebody had said something, and I was like, "Whoa, that's way off base." And I'm like, "Where'd you come up with that?" And I looked at what I was doing, and I was like, "Oh my golly!" Like I completely walked away from my own system.
Yeah.
And so I got into a process of my one-on-ones were telling people what to do
Oh,
and not
wow.
talking to them about their pathway to discovery and success. And I think that's a big difference is most people, when they sit down for those 5 minutes, the manager just talks for 5 minutes straight. And then,
That's true.
and, and because they don't accomplish what they need to accomplish in 5 minutes.
No, that's true.
Because
That's true.
the 5 minutes should be questions. And by the way, the other side of the 5 minutes is that the employee is prepping that conversation. They know the questions.
Well,
So
that's
if
good.
they, just like we do on our coaching calls, every one of my coaching clients fills out a form before we get on a call that says, like, this is how last week went. This is what I committed to. This is how I did. Um, and then they tell me about the wins that they had. They tell me about any problems that they had with the week before. They tell me what they think they need to be working on this week. And so that way we can direct what we're going to be talking about
Yeah,
on our
that's a
call.
good
It's
idea.
like the take five,
That's right. Let's take 5. Yeah.
Because then I say, well, how can I help? And we talk about it for half an hour. So all of my coaching clients have gotten into the practice of filling that out. Well, all of my employees did too, right?
Oh,
They
wow.
all knew I was going to sit down with Jeff each week and talk to Jeff about these things, and so they would fill out the questions ahead of time. We'd sit down, they'd go through their answers with me. I'd ask the questions out loud still. They'd go through their answers, and then we'd move on, right? And sometimes with the management, it usually took a little bit longer. With a normal person, it usually didn't because their goals are pretty standard. And so I would say that that's really the two biggest reasons. The biggest one, A, they don't believe it can take five, and B, um, they talk too much. The leaders talk too much instead of asking questions and allowing the other person to answer the question. So
Yeah. And it sounds like you created this framework that's really helped companies grow and scale.
yeah, not all of them realized it at the time. I actually had a couple call me up later, not realizing that I had been the one that built it. And a lot of people across the company were using it at that point. So when I left Chuck E. Cheese, the whole district that I was working in was using it. When I left Lumber Liquidators, the whole state was using it.
Wow.
And obviously at Tesla and my whole market was using it. All my managers were using it, and in its format, the iteration that we were using inside of Tesla. But
Yeah. So does companies reach out to you to get that framework and work with you on that? Because that sounds very powerful.
When I was inside of other people's coaching concept, I wasn't really selling this particular one. There's
Yeah.
in its history, like if we were to go back and watch some of the workshops that I taught inside Business Maps and inside KW, um, this was layered on top. Which, by the way, this layers on top of any one of your all's
Yeah.
KPI programs, right? Like inside KW, they had a system called the GPS and the 411.
Yeah.
And the GPS is goals, priorities, and strategies. Well, we're talking about strategies in this conversation, right? The 411 was breaking down the numbers and looking at the activities needed to
That's correct.
be to have your 1 year, your 1 week, and or your 1 month and your 4 weeks, right? So
Yep.
so that was the 411. And well, guess what? Like that tells me what the numbers and the activities need to be, but it doesn't help the leaders have a conversation surrounding it, right? Like,
100%. 100%. Because that's one of the things that clients talk about. How do I hold somebody accountable? I can have the numbers, but how do I ask the questions besides telling them they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing?
yeah, exactly right. And so I taught a couple of workshops in my time there. Like everybody, most companies have this universal language, this shared language that they
Yeah.
have inside of the business.
Yeah.
And so that business understood GPS, they understood 411, they understood goal setting to the now, and the take five questions was not an approved shared language, so to speak,
Hmm.
in that sense. So my clients knew about it, and I didn't feel my managers knew about it, and without a company incorporating it, I didn't feel as if it was my place
Yeah.
to spread my brand around somebody else's shared language. And so now
Hmm.
that I'm doing this on my own, I feel a bit more free to spread that brand. And so, the Take Five leadership system is available now to be trained and taught inside of businesses. Um, People can go to thetakefivebook.com and download an ebook that's on it right now. They could go to bemoreeveryday.com and apply to have us come in and do consulting or coaching or training, on the topic, because it gets bigger. Like, that's how it started. It started with this accountability, and
Hmm.
we've got a way to incorporate it into every aspect of your business. The pillars are enlist, empower, exceed. So how do you get your team from the very beginning to align with you on vision and values,
Hmm.
your mission? How do you get them from the very beginning to understand their expectations?
That's
And
good.
then and then as you hire them and get them started, what systems and processes do you have in place to make sure that they have the tools that they need to
That's good.
achieve? And then we empower them to not just hit their goals, but beat their goals, exceed. That's where the exceed comes from, right? To exceed the goals that they've set for
Mm.
themselves. And you asked earlier, what's one thing that I might leave people with? And the thing that I'd like to tell everybody right now is if you get anything out of this conversation, it's that in my mind, a leader's job, a leader's purpose is to make sure that they are, a leader's purpose is to develop their people in such a way that they've expanded
Hmm.
the belief in themselves, and for success, that they when you're done working with them, that they think they can do so much more than they thought they could ever do before they worked with you. And so that's exceed. The exceed is, we're gonna sit down, we're gonna have these accountability conversations every week. We're gonna ask them questions. We're gonna provide the tools, the resources, the encouragement, and we're gonna show you that you can do more than you ever thought was possible.
No, that's amazing. And I like what you're talking about, that the framework you created, because you and I go back in maps, and accountability has is the key of growth and scale. And you can hold people accountable, but how do you have those conversations without telling them what to do, and then get them to self discover? They probably have the answers, or they can develop the answers with you, but without telling them. And your framework on those 5 questions are powerful, because really it helps them know that they can actually learn what to do versus waiting for somebody to tell them what to do, or they literally don't know if they have permission to do anything they
Yeah,
need to do. You know?
yeah. How often does that happen, right? Where
Yeah.
where you have a team member. I've encountered that. I can't tell you the number of times I encountered that. In fact, sometimes I didn't have the permission or now, right? Like,
Yeah. Hmm.
um, but how many times have we had something where like, oh, like, if I did this, I know we'd be able to hit our goal, and
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
don't know if I can do it. And then you reach out to your boss and you're like, hey, boss, I need to talk to you. And they're like, yeah, okay, I'll talk to you. And it's a month before we finally get a chance to talk to them. And they say, what did you need to talk about? And you're like, I don't even remember anymore.
That's correct. That's correct. That's correct. That's correct. That's correct. That's right. That's right.
And
No,
and
no.
that was one of
Good.
the fun things, by the way, about the Take Five, because I had these printed out and in binders for people, right?
Oh,
Like,
wow.
and so I'm a very physical kind of guy. Like, I keep a journal, for note taking by my side at all times. I have a whole bookshelf full of the notes that I've taken, and there's something just really manual, by the way, about literally having like writing
Yes.
it in.
Write it in. Yep.
And
Yep. Yep.
and
Yep.
so, a lot of people I work with these days are virtual, and so they type it in and send it to me. And I encourage you, if you're a business that is meeting with people in person, have the ability to meet with people in person,
I
make
agree
them
100%.
write it down.
I agree 100%.
And so what gets really fun about that is now, they're writing in their answers, which is the buy-in, right?
Yeah.
Like, and so all of a sudden you see them pulling out these books
Yep.
midweek,
Yep.
like, and they're writing on next week's sheet already. Like they're
Yep.
writing on the back of it, like some things they thought of, some things they want to talk to me about. And then when they've got theirs pulled out, somebody else sees that theirs is pulled out, and they might pull theirs out and
Oh,
write down something. And then they're talking to each other about their books that they're holding in
yeah.
their hand. And now they're collaborating on different methods to be successful right there in person in
Yeah.
front of
That's
each
pretty
other.
good.
They're like, oh, well, what are you doing? Oh, well, what are you doing? Because a lot of times they've got shared goals, right?
Hmm.
And they're like, and now they're playing with each other. And so all of a sudden, like this happy accident happened where the team is discussing their goals together because they can all like anybody could pull out anybody else's binders. They're not under lock and key, right?
That's
Like,
correct.
read each other's up or talk to each other when they're pulled out. Everybody knows what each other's doing when they pull
Yeah.
their binder out. And it also creates a conversation confirmer that goes back.
That's correct.
And I'm
That's
sure
correct.
you've noticed this with coaching too. You ever had a coaching client that, a year later, like you're just peeking down their list of the things that they've done.
Yeah.
And, a year ago, like the goal was to set up 2 appointments in a week or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you look this year and now they've got a team of 4 people whose goals are all to set 4 appointments each
Yep.
a week.
Yep.
And so their team is setting 20 appointments every week.
Yeah.
And, between the leader and the
Yep.
4 employees. And a year ago they were only setting 2, right? Like,
That's correct.
We just
That's correct.
we just 10x'd in a year,
That's correct.
and we know that because we've been writing it down. And
That's
so
correct.
sometimes you flip all the way to the back, and you've got this person that you started working with the year before who couldn't close anything to save their life, and they just kept
Yep.
defaulting to helping people on the loading dock because they
Yep.
were almost too embarrassed to ask if somebody wanted to ring it up. And then a year later, they're the number 1 salesperson in the company. It's just wild to see.
It's wildly amazing, and I think what you've done is you've given owners or entry level managers, or even experienced managers a very simple framework that they can, like you said, what's your 3 words in list?
It's
Enlist.
enlist, empower, exceed. Yeah.
Yeah, you gave enlist, empower, exceed. You gave him those 3 elements in the relationship building part of the people, the human capital, the part that, I was at an ACG meeting today and they're talking about, you got to hire the right people, you got to retain them, and then your framework is the mechanism and the simple tool to retain them.
Yeah.
And then
100%.
and it's a repeatable process. It's a system that anybody can learn. I mean, because, we always, when we're in math, we talk about the coach approach. I'm like, okay, how do you simplify it so everybody can follow? It's
Yeah.
how do you simplify it? You
Yeah,
did it.
it's one thing to tell leaders to ask questions. It's another
Yeah.
thing to teach the leaders the questions to ask, right?
And if you could do it in 5 minutes or less, because I have a client right now, he's like, oh, I'm going to have these EOS meetings for an hour. I say, you cannot have
Every
10
day of the
EO
week.
every week. He's like, I got to have 6. How do you have 6? I said, I'm telling you right now, I don't know how you can do 6 meetings a week, 6 hours on EO. I mean, it's got to be a better way. He's like, oh, we got to go through this. Are you sure? Because that's a lot of meetings besides everything else you got on. He's like, yeah, Arnel, you may have to, I don't know. I said, well, I'm gonna have to find me a resource or something because that's just gonna overwhelm you.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And that was a big part of it, right? Like death by meetings, for sure.
Oh,
Pat
yeah.
Lencioni could teach everybody a little bit of something there, but one of the big reasons so many companies have so many meetings is because they feel as if they're not the communication isn't happening, and
That's correct.
And so they feel like, oh, I need to have another meeting because this communication isn't happening. Well, if you're talking to everybody every day, like if you're talking to everybody every week, then the communication's happening. And by the way, some people, with larger teams, you might have this one-on-one with them each week, but to encourage the teams, you might have a 5-minute conversation every morning, and so and not with every person on the team, but with the team together.
That's a good point.
That looks a little bit different because now we're talking about a team goal.
Yep.
And so, we'll have a little stand-up huddle in the morning. I do this, by the way, on the bemoredaily.com. That's what our action call is. So if somebody wants to see how it's done, feel free to jump on with me sometime. It's no charge. I'm doing it anyway. Everybody's welcome to come at no charge. It's just no sales pitch. It's just
No, that's good.
It's just successful people working together to help people be more successful. So
Yeah, that's good.
be more successful. Anyway, and so I might have that website. I don't remember. If I don't, I need to buy it before somebody else does. All
That's
right.
true.
So,
That's true.
uh, so literally though is, you can have a 10-minute phone call where you just jump on and say, okay, everybody, hey, this is our shared goal for the day. Sound off. How are you going to do today? And everybody sounds off, right?
Hmm.
And then as a team, they'd sound off, and then we say, okay, who's got a success story to share from yesterday? And somebody shares a story. Who's got a problem they think they might encounter today? And somebody brings it up. Who's got encouragement for that person that's having the problem? Who knows a solution? And they tell it. And then
That's
they
good.
say, okay, great, everybody go get it. And then we might bring him back in the afternoon. I had one guy who would bring everybody back in at 3:21 because we got
Hmm.
off at 5, right? So if you would bring him back in 3:21, a weird time, and he promised everybody they'd be off at 3:30, so less than 9 minutes. And so he'd bring
Oh
everybody on and
wow.
say, okay, how's everybody doing? And everybody sounds off and tells everybody how they did for the day. Somebody that won and already hit your goal, and tell us what worked, and
That's
they tell them
good.
what worked. Somebody that hasn't hit their goal, what do you need help with today? And
Yep.
and people would chime in and help them, and then they'd say, okay, you got an hour and a half left to go get your goal, go get it. And so we added a 10-minute at the beginning and a 10-minute at the end, but I just touched base with all of my people twice today, and and had a chance to hear them, like,
That's
again,
good.
own their goal and then sign out with results by holding them accountable. But it's the same structure. It's the same questions, but on a group call. The way we do it in the morning on my call is we break into breakout rooms,
Yeah, it's
so it
smart.
feels a little more personal.
Yeah.
If there's 10 people on the call, we'll have 3 breakout rooms of 3 people, and then one person has to get stuck with me in the waiting room. No, I'm just kidding. But then they round robin it. Somebody just says what their goal is for the day and their strategy to hitting it, and it's really cool because all these people in all different businesses, and they come back and so they're hearing angles from all sorts of different businesses. Like one person's in healthcare sales, and one person's in lending, and
That's
one
really
person's
good. That's good.
in construction, and so they come back and they just get encouragement from a bunch of different fields.
No, and I
Um,
like it how you do it virtual. That's really good. So if somebody has to reach out to you, Jeff, what's the best way to reach out to you?
the easiest way to find me and to book some time with me is to go through Be More Every Day, BMORE every day,
Hmm.
EVERYDAY.com, and you can get right onto my calendar. It goes directly to me because I believe that this is really important. Um, and so that's probably the easiest way to find me. There's so many different things on there that says book a call, book a call, book a call. It'd be impossible to miss. If you just want to read more about the Take Five or download the forums, again, the take5book.com. There's an ebook. If print it, give it to every one of your managers. Like, I don't care if you print it 1,000 times, give it to all your managers. Really, my goal is to, again, like, if I make $0 off of the Take Five system and a movement is created of leaders that want to change the lives of their people, I'll feel like I have done my purpose on earth. And so print it, give it out 1,000 times. There's a $5 charge. I'm going to be upfront about it. But the reason there's a $5 charge is because without putting any money down, you're not going to do anything with it. You'll
I
download it,
agree, 100%.
and you'll forget about it. And so if I'm forced you to pull out your credit card, hopefully that says, hey, I bought this, I'm going to do something with it. $5 isn't a big commitment. So
No, no, no. Yeah, and I'm gonna get it because I mean it gives me a simple framework to pass on. My clients are building out teams or they already have teams in place. It makes it really simple. And the reason I brought Jeff on board is because that framework, you can't grow and scale if you don't bring talent. And if you have right talent, how do you retain them? How do you
yeah,
help them become a better version of them and grow in a company, and make the company a career decision, not just a job? You got to have that Take Five system because you're facilitating discussion without telling them discussion. If it's simplified and process oriented, then they can teach and then you make the term accountability into a action, not a noun. It's an action versus a noun. So here's accountability. Here's how we help people become accountable. Oh, we have this system you use, and I 5 minutes. That's great because you know what? today time is a commodity. If you can make it very productive by having these 5, and the thing I like about his system, it's ongoing.
Yeah.
It's, I mean, that's, you're never going to know you're not going to know what's not happening in your people's lives if you do the system.
Yeah, I had one client one time come to me and say, Jeff, I just can't get it done in 5 minutes. And I said, you're talking too much. Like I literally said that. And I said, I challenge you to just, again, have them fill out the questions. Yeah. You go in and laser focus on their answers. That's it. Just, laser focus on their answers. And then, spend a little bit more time on, when they say, how can you help? Like when I say, how can I help? What is my strategy? Spend a little more time there. Mm-hmm. And he came back the next week and he said, I got it done with every single one of my team members. And he was in construction, which means they were all over the place in different projects.
That's a very powerful thing. Cause, when I work with clients and help them hire and we talk about onboarding, I'm like, hey, this is a great framework. Hey, download this Tate 5, use this as a framework to basically help you hold them accountable and help them develop. I mean, because idea is you may hire talent, you just got to get them integrated and get them up to a point where they're being held accountable and holding other people accountable. Yeah, and you got a team. You got a team.
100%. So that's the old John Maxwell equip model, right?
Yep.
I do it. I do it with you. You do it with me. You do it, and now you're doing it with others.
That's correct. That's correct. So, all right, guys, I just want to take a moment and just thank Jeff Kuhn for being here. I think he provided a lot of great value, especially around holding people accountable, proving people's retention, and especially talking about personal goals. I mean, many advisors or coaches don't talk about personal goals. Managers or executives don't talk about that. And some scaling systems don't even talk about personal goals. They don't even want to mention that at all. And so I think that's a disadvantage to retention if you're not talking about helping someone to reach their personal goals. And Jeff has a very simple system. So if you're interested, reach out to him. Any questions? I'm going to be sharing this on YouTube and a couple of my channels, and I'm going to put his contact information. Please reach out to him. Even get on his call. I think it's going to be worth it because eventually down the road, this component that he offers, if you got to grow and scale through people and you want people to be accountable and you have one simple framework, he's got it. And Jeff, I want to thank you for just sharing your knowledge and expertise. I think this is phenomenal because that's good stuff, and I think people can use it really quickly, simple framework to follow, and it will grow exponentially.
Well, I appreciate you having me on, Arnel. Always great to keep in touch.
All right, great. I see you then. Let me go ahead and shut us out. And again, thanks. We'll look for the next video, and thanks for coming, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right.